Have you ever felt like you're doing everything right with your European Portuguese study? You're doing the lessons, you're doing their apps, but you're still not making enough progress. Chances are you have the wrong study plan for the level that you are at. For years, that was me. When I first came to Portugal, I was studying at university, so I was learning Portuguese the old-fashioned way, from textbooks and CDs. But luckily, I did live with 6 Portuguese girls, which was amazing for my immersion. The problem was I had spent so long focusing on the technical aspects of the language, I wasn't forcing myself to speak, which is what I should have been doing for the level that I was at. So that was keeping me stuck. Every night I would sit at the dinner table, really hoping that nobody would ask me a question. And any time that they were laughing about something, I just sort of awkwardly joined in, even though I really didn't understand the jokes. If I'd had a better idea of the level that I was at and what I needed to do to get to the next level, because at that stage it was speaking practice, I was wasting my time with all of the grammar at that point, I would have seen much better progress. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through all 5 levels of speaking Portuguese to show you what each one actually looks like and to help you identify exactly what you need to focus on to reach the next level. So let's start with level 1. That is the tourist. At level 1, you know a small collection of Portuguese words. They're usually the polite ones. You can say bom dia for good morning, boa tarde in the afternoon, and obrigado or obrigada for thank you. And these are a great place to start because these phrases help you enter an interaction politely, but they only get you through the first few seconds. The difficulty appears when you need to do anything beyond that one line that you have prepared. So maybe you want to speak to a neighbour, or explain a problem to a doctor, or ask a follow-up question, or understand what somebody actually says back to you, and that is when your mind usually goes blank. So at level 1, you can start an interaction, but you can't really finish it yet. Now, the mistake that keeps people here stuck is memorizing more and more isolated words and hoping that they will eventually turn into being able to speak the language. And this doesn't work because the conversations you want to have are built from complete phrases, responses, and patterns that you can use without needing to build every sentence from scratch. So if you're feeling stuck at this level, what you should do instead of memorizing isolated words is choose a handful of situations that you actually face every week. It can be as simple as ordering a meal or a coffee or paying at the supermarket. So what I want you to do instead of learning singular words is to learn complete phrases for each situation and practice saying them out loud until they come really naturally. Now, I've got so many videos that can help you here, from what to say at the supermarket to how to greet people, and I highly recommend you check one of these out if this is the level that you are currently stuck at. The other big thing is you need to work on your pronunciation from the beginning, because knowing the right phrase isn't much use if nobody understands you when you are using it. Having excellent pronunciation is the reason that my students are often complimented on their Portuguese and mistaken for way more advanced learners than they actually are. So if pronunciation is an area that you need to work on, and it probably is if you are stuck in this tourist phase, I've created a free guide that helps you with 7 of the most tricky sounds in Portuguese to make you sound clearer and to be understood more easily by locals. The link is in the description, so go ahead and download it now. So once people can understand what you are saying, you discover the next problem. You now need to understand what they say back, and that takes us to level 2. I'm calling level 2 the survivor. So you can handle short practical conversations in Portuguese, like ordering food, asking for directions, or checking into a hotel. And at this stage, the most helpful thing you can do is, again, not more vocabulary. It's how to keep a conversation going, even if you can't understand some things. So instead of freezing and switching back to English, you need a few phrases that can help you keep the conversation going in Portuguese. So here are a few helpful phrases that you can use if this is the level you are at. The first one is Diga. Nice and simple to pronounce, but this is really helpful. It's a polite way of saying, say it again, or as we would probably translate it, excuse me. Another great one that you will probably need is podia falar mais devagar. Podia falar mais devagar. This means can you speak more slowly? So if you didn't catch what the person was saying, they'll be able to repeat it for you and also be a bit more aware that you are a learner. Another invaluable phrase for this level is o que significa. This means what does it mean? I'll say it again slowly. O que significa. So if there is a particular word in somebody's response and you don't know what that means, this can help you identify what that word is, which will hopefully unlock what the rest of the sentence is about. Another great way to keep the conversation going when you are at this stage is to try to avoid ending the conversation with a one-word answer. So you can think about what you might do in English, which would be to give an answer, add one detail, and then ask them something back. So, for example, if somebody says, Como estás? Meaning, how are you? You could say, Estou bem, obrigada, or obrigado if you are male. So there's your first answer, but instead of letting it end there, let's add a detail. Maybe you've bumped into somebody on the street and you can let them know where you're going. Maybe you're on your way to the cafe or the gym. So you could say, Vou ao ginásio. Vou ao ginásio. I'm going to the gym. Then we need to ask a question back, which can be as simple as asking the same one. E tu, como estás? This is the phase that my students get to round about the middle of my course, and they have so much fun using their Portuguese when they are out and about and challenging themselves at this level. Like my student Amanda, who messaged me after her trip to Portugal, absolutely buzzing because for the first time she was able to handle real situations on her own instead of immediately switching back to English. Now, another issue at level 2 is translating everything in your head. You hear the Portuguese, you convert it to English and think of a reply, and then you have to think of what to say back in Portuguese. And this delay makes the other person feel like you're not really present in the conversation and it's kind of just taking too long. So what should you do about this? It's really important to start training your ear with real European Portuguese every day, even if it's only for 10 minutes. Now, this isn't easy to find listening material that suits this level of learner, but there is an awesome website that I recommend to my students for this exact situation. It's called Linguno. Let's take a look at how to use it. So here I am at linguno.com. As you can see, I'm already signed in. It is free to use, and I have selected my language up here as European Portuguese. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to their listening section, and because I'm still a survivor at this stage, I'm going to select the difficulty of easy. You can also choose your voice if you find one of them clearer than another, but they're all pretty similar and clear. And then for the tense, I'm just going to stick to the present tense because, as I say, I'm just a survivor at this stage. So that leads us to press start. So once I click go, it's going to give me a sentence that I have to listen to, and then I have to type what I hear in the box and see if I was correct. So let's play the first one.
Trabalha na universidade. Ele trabalha na universidade.
So the play button gives me normal speed, but I can use this turtle button and it will play it a lot more slowly.
Ele trabalha na universidade.
Okay, so I think I know what I need to write here. Ele trabalha na universidade. Make sure you do put accents on, okay? They will pop up here if you need them, but I don't think we need them in this sentence. Let's see if I got it right. Excellent. So this is a really great way to do some simple listening practice using only the present tense and with audio that can be slowed down. Another brilliant way to move beyond a survivor level is to learn how to react to what people are saying with really native-like phrases instead of just smiling and nodding all the time. I have 2 videos on how to react like a local that will teach you phrases like que giro, how cool, que engraçado, how funny, or even não faço ideia, I have no idea. This helps you respond directly in Portuguese instead of translating every thought first. But surviving a conversation and keeping it going is just the tip of the iceberg. Once you get past it, you get to level 3, which is what I call the neighbour. Now, at this point, you can move beyond practical conversations and start having social ones. And this is that sweet A2, B1 level that the students I teach are working towards. So if that is your goal, you should definitely head to the description to take my free lesson for beginners and find out all about the Portuguese Pro program, which I'll dive into deeper at the end of the video. So at this stage, even if it isn't perfect, and it definitely won't be, you can still talk about your weekend or comment on the weather and ask someone how they are doing and really get into a back and forth conversation. The challenge now is expressing something that you didn't prepare in advance. Someone might ask you for your opinion, or they might tell you a story, or take the conversation in a completely different direction. You know what you want to say, but you may not have the exact vocabulary or the grammar to say it. So at this level, my best advice is that you need to stop waiting for the perfect sentence and start using the Portuguese that you do already have. A couple of useful phrases at this point in your journey would be como se diz? Como se diz? This means how do you say? So if you know what you want to say in English, you could say something like como se diz bad-tempered, for example. This will allow the person you're speaking with to help you find that word in Portuguese. You can also try using the Portuguese you do have to describe what you are trying to say. For example, you could say, não sei a palavra, mas... I don't know the word, but, and then you can use your Portuguese to explain what you're trying to say. I go into this in more detail in this video on how to beat brain freeze, and this would be a really helpful one because I teach several techniques to get you around the problem of your mind going blank. These skills are really important because a conversation is unpredictable. You will never know every word that you need in advance, so the goal is to keep expressing yourself even when your Portuguese is not perfect. This is kind of the stage that I was at when I was living and studying in Portugal for the first time, and I was too scared to speak, but that was what was really holding me back. So you should be aiming to have at least one conversation a week that you haven't prepared for. It could be with a tutor or a language learning partner, a Portuguese speaking friend, or even someone you just meet randomly on the street. When you do get stuck, do not immediately switch to English. Simplify the thought, describe the missing word, or use a sentence you already know to express things in a different way. Afterwards, when that conversation is over, you need to spend a little bit of time thinking about the places where you were struggling. This is much more practical and useful than memorizing more vocabulary lists. So once you can handle unpredictable conversations and express what you actually mean, you may start looking fluent from the outside. But this is also where progress can stall because you become comfortable with the Portuguese you already know and you don't push it to the next level. And that brings us to level 4, which I'm calling the friend. Now, this is the most important level in the whole video, so stay with me. From the outside, you probably look fluent. You have found comfortable ways to express most things, so you start avoiding anything that feels difficult. You use the same vocabulary, you rely on the same sentence structures, and take the long way around tenses that you are not confident with. For example, you might want to say, queria ter ido, mas tive de trabalhar. I wanted to go, but I had to work. But because this structure feels difficult to put together, you simplify it and say, não fui. Trabalhei. I didn't go, I worked. So that is not the way we are going to actually connect and speak in our own language. So what do we need to do? Well, at this stage, you need feedback more than anything because you might not notice the safe patterns that you keep repeating. So a great exercise at this stage would be to record yourself whilst having a conversation talking about your day. And then ask your teacher, your friend, the native speaker to point out where your Portuguese sounds too simple, repetitive, or unnatural. Now, this is where we can revisit a tool like Linguno because it tests us on more difficult tenses and structures. Let's see how we can do that using this website. So we're back in Linguno. This time, to test us on more difficult tenses, let's go to the conjugation option. Now, I already had this set up with B1 level 2. That means I'm going to be tested on all of these tenses. I can customize it further, for example, and take off all of the other options and just do the present subjunctive. Let's say I'm really struggling with that and I want to practice, so I can leave that checked there. We also could make sure that we have vos unchecked, so it's not going to test us on that because it's not something that is commonly used. Okay, so now let's go back up and say start. Okay, so now it's testing us on the present subjunctive. As you can see, my verb is levar and it's asking me to put it in the third person. So here is a sentence I'm trying to write. I'll send you home in my car. And here is the sentence in Portuguese with the verb missing. Vou pedir que o something para casa no meu carro. So I know that if I have the verb levar and it's in the third person plural, I am going to say levem. Let's check it.
Vou pedir que o levem para casa no meu carro.
Excellent. Let's try the next one. So this time we have the verb tomar in the present subjunctive, and this time I need to use the third person singular. So for tomar, that would be tome.
Estamos a esperar que ele tome outra decisão.
So these are fantastic because you get to see these verbs in context of a whole sentence. So you can now start working on these types of more complicated structures. You should also practice explaining more complicated ideas, defending an opinion, or retelling a story, because these really force you beyond the Portuguese phrases that you already find comfortable. So at this level, the goal isn't just to keep speaking, it's to make your Portuguese more precise, more flexible, and more natural. And once you stop simplifying yourself to fit the language, your full personality can finally come through. And that brings us to level 5, the local. So this is the top of the ladder. At this level, you're no longer translating every thought or planning every sentence before you speak. You can react naturally, tell stories, understand jokes, and express your actual personality in Portuguese. You also start picking up the small things that the textbooks don't even teach. So local slang, cool expressions, and also pick up on the different accents that people are using across Portugal. Again, it doesn't mean your Portuguese is perfect. I always tell my students this. You're basically going to be a lifetime learner at this point. I'm still learning new things about the language every day. So don't put too much pressure on yourself to get to this level too quickly, because honestly, it's quite rare for people to reach this, especially after only 1 or 2 years of study. At this stage, my advice is honestly just enjoy using the language. Watch TV shows, listen to podcasts, talk to people, make mistakes, laugh at jokes, and let Portuguese just become another part of your life rather than something you are trying to constantly master and optimize. So now that you've seen all 5 levels, I want you to comment below which level you are on right now and what's keeping you stuck. Did anything in this video help? Are you going to try Linguno? I want to hear all about it. And of course, if you found this video helpful, hit that like button as well. Now, if you recognized yourself in levels 1 or 2, or even the early stages of 3, and you're tired of jumping between apps and textbooks and random videos without knowing what to focus on, I do have exactly what you need. I've created a free 60-minute workshop for you. It's called Speak Portuguese Like a Pro, and inside I'll show you the practical path to speaking and understanding European Portuguese with more confidence without drowning in grammar or wasting time learning things that you don't actually need yet. The link is in the description, so go and save your spot because I know this workshop will help you understand what to focus on and what to avoid. And I'll see you in the next video.